Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for The Bear Season 2, Episode 7, titled Forks. Let me all introduce you to this is my favorite fork. It's got a little flower design on the bottom. It's got, listen, when you've got a good quality fork, you want to use it as much as humanly possible. I understand fully the restaurant's attention to detail. I I cannot say enough things about this episode. I listen, there were at least like 5 or 10 people in our lives who were basically saying, you got to get to this episode. You got to get to this episode. You're going to love this episode. It's easily one of my favorite episodes of the year. It's probably one of my favorite episodes ever since there's an episode of The Leftovers called International Assassin. And I don't even think The Leftovers from start to finish is that perfect of a show. But that one episode just blew my socks off and just left me like stunned and silent for 10 minutes. I was so blown away by this. I loved every single second of it.
This was such a beautifully emotional episode to really dive into Richie and hit his soul, his heart, his mind, what makes him, tick, like what can really reach him, things like respect or kindness. There's a lot to Richie. He's not just, this big, loud, I'm not going to
Yeah.
change. Like, he's more than capable of change, and he's more than capable of seeing things from another perspective. It just has to be brought to him in a way that he relates to. And that's how everybody works, which is what makes Richie in this episode so relatable, because we're all like that. You can bring things to people in a way that it relates, and you're able to kind of move along with that and change. You bring it to somebody in a way that doesn't relate, and people just like get stuck and they just don't move forward. And we had him in this episode, moving into an environment that he was not comfortable with. He thought Carmi was sending them there as punishment to
Yes.
shine all these forks, and didn't really understand why he was there until he was getting to the end of his time there, where he's like talking to the owner of this place and, kind of learning that Carmi actually has quite a bit of respect for him and thinks he's a really, a great people person. And that's one of the many things he really likes about him. And then getting that, reaffirmation to be like, and Carmi's right. You're really great with people. And I'm really glad you were here. I was like, oh my goodness, like you're reaching him. You are reaching him.
This is such a special episode of television. It is inspiring. It is emotional. It's moving. I said in the review that we did of Fishes that that's an episode I will never watch again, and that's not necessarily because it's bad. It's just that it made me too squeamish. It made me too uncomfortable. I've already watched this episode twice, and I'm probably gonna watch it at least like 1 or 2 more times before the end of this year. I love it so much. I can't wait to break all of this down further and all the different themes that you touched on. But hit that subscribe button now, because we're going to be here through the rest of season 2. Season 3 is, of course, coming. We are really looking forward to that. And by subscribing, you help us to continue to make meals of all of these different videos on the bear while I'm sitting here holding this fork. You just want to dive right in. We really appreciate all of your support so much. Okay, with an episode like this, it's kind of hard in a way to figure out an exact point to begin, because it's so easy to just be like, oh, I love this moment. I love this moment. I love this moment. But I'll just start with a general observation I did after watching it for the first time. And I had to do a little bit more research on this, because I was watching this restaurant and its machine-like way of operating, from like knowing certain people, how important they are when they're coming in, dietary. And I was just like, is all this real? Am I watching some element of science fiction? But there are real restaurants like this. This episode is based a lot on a real restaurant, and a lot of the elements of this service is completely real. And it blew my mind that this was actually such an elaborate operation.
I couldn't believe the attention to detail,
Yeah.
the caring in this, that it wasn't just, oh, we got to serve all these rich people and make sure whatever, that the staff really cared and felt good when the customers felt good, even if it was someone who was like uber rich, or it was someone who's like, oh, I saved up all my money and I just really wanted to go here and I finally have a chance. And that they'd be looking at people's Instagrams and Twitters to be able to figure out like, oh, this person saved up all their money to come tonight. they're going to get the experience that they are coming here and paying for, or even just overhearing conversations like that whole thing about the Chicago deep dish, where it was just like, oh, so and so at this table has said that they've never tried this before. Here's some money, go to this place, they make the best, bring it back here. And then even watching the chef like cut it out
Yeah.
and plate it in this beautiful way to be like, oh, we want to make sure that you had a chance to have it before you left on the house. I was just like, it's just incredible. And it made me understand why it really was that they were like, we really love being in the service industry and servicing people in this way, that them having that huge smile and being like, oh my good, like
Mhm.
I can't believe it. And having the appreciation for just how far you're willing to go to be able to make sure that they have a good night. And seeing Richie from polishing forks to having that moment himself where he's like, Chef Jess, can I take this out? Please let me take this out. And they were like, all right, you go for it. He was just so happy. He felt so good. I was like, you ride that wave, Richie. You ride it.
I can't even explain how happy all of this made me. Like, it made me so happy and so inspired just to watch all of this play out. And I mean, you touched on something really important in there, which is that element of the people who are working at this restaurant. They're all very smart people. They're
Mhm,
obviously very hardworking. They could probably work somewhere else in most instances and make
mhm.
even more money than they are here. I don't think a lot of people get into the restaurant and culinary institute unless you're like Gordon Ramsay or one of these like super chefs that's on TV all the time.
Or this guy who's like, we're going to talk about that smudge until the end of time, until somebody tells
Yeah,
me who did it.
I feel like
How dare you?
the majority of people who get into this particular line of work, to this echelon of culinary arts, you're doing it because you love it. You're doing it because you care so
Yep.
much about that reaction from people. And that sort of energy is so infectious that it can really spread. And I think it's this big eye opening experience for Richie of, oh, this is what this is really like. This is what it means to be this inspired. I can be that guy, but we have to have the Chicago pizza conversation here for a
Okay.
moment because I put way too much thought into this. So the pizza that they brought in here is Pequod's, which is a very popular deep dish pizza that is in Chicago. I am very ashamed to admit I have never had Pequod's pizza. Pequod's pizza. If you're watching this video and you want to, freeze dry a pizza or whatever you call it, and you can send it to me, I would really appreciate it. I've had Lumanati's, I've had Pizzeria Uno, I've had some good ones, but I did kind of go a little bit back and forth. It's like, okay, if I'm getting a Pequod's pizza, do I want them to like try to fancy it up a little bit, or you just bring me the big greasy mass and I'll just eat it as is? But
That is not the restaurant for you. That's what you're having.
I'm just saying, no, but I did love though that they even took something like that, which I'm fine eating it the way that it is, but they made sure there was loving care put into that because
Yep.
they wanted the patrons to know, okay, we care about this enough that we're going to try to elevate this experience. And apparently, even that is something that real life chefs have done at certain points where you're taking food from elsewhere and able to elevate it and lift this experience. It just, as uncomfortable as the last episode made me feel, like this episode just made me feel so unbelievably good.
Yeah, I want good things for Richie. I
Yeah.
really do. Like after the last episode and seeing how in love and just silly and fun his relationship with Tiff was, to get into this episode where she's making the very uncomfortable call to be like, yo, I'm engaged. I'm really
Mhm.
sorry that it makes you feel a certain way. But, he asked, I said yes. I wanted you to hear it from me. So I'm calling you. Like they seem to still have a fairly respectful relationship, which is great. The co parenting. So, it's working out. But you can just see it. I mean, even when he's on the phone, he is still wearing his wedding ring. Like he hasn't moved on.
Yeah.
So this whole experience, even though he was only there for a week, and at first he was so resistant, like you could really see this confidence where it was like at the beginning of the week, you had to drag his butt out of bed. By the end of the week, he was waking up before the alarm, being like, I'm going to clean up my own counter before I leave. I'm going to make sure my own place looks good. And then, I'm going to go there and do a good job. And I really understand that. For those of you who don't know, I used to work in funeral service. I was a funeral director. And the place that I worked, was very much like this place. Not like super duper high end, but very like customer service was like number one. You had to make sure that everybody, had a coffee or was okay, or that, the details were exactly perfect. Like there was one person who was doing an arrangement with me, and they were like, saw this cardinal, like this like ceramic cardinal that was like up on the shelf, and was like, oh man, so and so really, loved cardinals. So we made sure that it was in the chapel with them. And as soon as they came in and saw it, they were like, oh, it's the cardinal. And those things mattered
Mhm.
and made me feel good. So I understood that feeling that he was getting, that he was just like, man, it's like elevating, elevate. So by the time he got to that pizza and he was like, put me in, coach. I am ready. I feel this. I can do this. I was like, yeah, you can do this. Now, that relationship with Chef Jess felt like maybe there could have been a little bit of something there. I mean, he wasn't there long enough.
Mhm.
And I mean, we did see him near the end of the episode talking to Garrett, where he was just like, if you have any openings, like I could stay here. I'm like, what are you doing? you have a job.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. But I saw the way that he was watching Chef Jess like call those things out with the details. I feel like that's the station that he's going to want to end up picking up. Like he really is good with those details.
He is, and he's such a personable guy. Like
Yeah,
he's
he is.
somebody when if he is kind of at his full ability, he's likable, he's funny,
Yep.
he's charming. Like there's plenty of reasons why anybody would get behind Richie, and
Do you think we're going to see Chef Jess again
I hope so. I don't
with Richie going on a date?
I okay, I ship it. I'm with you with this.
It was
I
cute.
ship them.
Yeah.
I would love to see her back in season 3. Like I don't
Yeah.
necessarily think it's something that has to be rushed, but I
No.
would love to see them encounter each other again because like to me, I've never worked a service job like this. So I can't relate to any of that aspect of this episode, but I can relate to this idea of being inspired. And once you are inspired, you want to like go with it as far as you possibly can and
Mhm.
sort of use this to just help you in all facets of your life. Like Richie has gone through a lot in his life these past several years. He lost people that are clearly dear to him, everything that's going on with Tiff, who he clearly hasn't gotten over. Like there's
Yep.
so much going on with this guy, but he sees a brand new light of himself in this job. And I think it helps him to see not a side to him he didn't know existed, but it refamiliarized himself with it. And that's what kind of made that conversation at the end of this episode so important in a lot of ways, where, we're getting to see him with the boss, with the big boss, as
Mhm.
he put it in one point in this episode. And he's basically understanding more that he was there for a reason, and Carmi believed in him for that
Mhm.
very reason. This was never a punishment. And the sign of every second counts, all the little details that are this was a Carmi backstory episode as much as it was a Richie episode.
100%. I mean, there's a picture of him and Luca on the wall as
Yeah,
he's walking by. I'm like, oh, there's Luca. There's Carmi. I
yeah.
mean, it really is full circle on a lot of things. And that Carmi trusted Richie enough to be at this place that meant so much to Carmi as well,
Yeah.
that he would have called in that type of a favor to be like, listen, Richie's a great guy. He's really great with people. If you would have him come in for this week and, just teach him some stuff. Like he's a great learner. He'll be able to figure it out. And I think it really meant a lot to Richie to hear that.
I think
He
so.
needed to hear that.
He did. This is the thing that's going to push him to that next level. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh, Richie's going to be perfect the rest of the bear. I don't think that's the case. I
No.
think he's going to certainly stumble, but this episode is an affirmation of what it is that he's capable of. And
Yes.
it's going to allow him to be there in a way that he never has before. Now, here's the number one thing I will say beyond all of this. This may be the best use of a Taylor Swift song I have ever
I know,
seen
right?
in media. I know that, Taylor's had plenty of songs that have been on other shows, movies, and all of that. But just the sight of, even playing Richie singing Love Story in the
know.
car going up in the air, him, just the smile on his face. Like, this is obviously the reason why he's going to get nominated in pretty much everything under the sun for this episode. Like, he is incredible, but the music, the tone, the visuals, this was just put together with so much care that you're able to sort of get lost in the romanticism of what Richie is going through while still recognizing that this is a pretty grounded and serious show.
Yeah, Richie really now needs to be able to take what he learned from this restaurant and learned about himself, the things
Yeah.
that he really understands. Like that conversation he had outside with Garrett, where he was kind of like, can you just give me the respect to like do this at this job and just get through this with some respect? And Richie's like, I understand respect.
Yeah.
And then we see him, at one point on the phone with Carmi. Carmi's yelling it back. Everything is going sideways.
Yeah.
He's getting electrocuted. And he's just on the phone being like, what is happening? Like, I'm at this place where everything is running so smoothly and I feel like I'm part of something. I'm part of the machine. Like,
Mhm.
we're doing it together. And like, I'm on a call and like somebody's getting electrocuted and Carmi's yelling at somebody and they're hanging up the phone on me. I think he's long just wanted to feel like he is part of something. He is part of a machine with everybody else. Everybody's moving along. There's mutual respect with everybody, and it's not this just big yelling chaos. And unfortunately, that's still where he is. So my question is he going to be able to keep chasing that moment and keep that feeling long enough to get to the opening?
My hope is that he will do just enough that he can not only get there, but that he can help a couple other people get there and
Mm,
find their own stability. I think one of the things that Richie has kind of struggled with is like, okay, Carmi's this master chef. Sydney's
yeah,
obviously very good at what she's doing.
yeah.
I'm helping to renovate and get this place ready, but there's disaster here, disaster here. Like,
Mhm.
what is it that I'm actually good at? And I
Yeah.
think now that he's gotten a reminder of that, he can go in there and maybe delegate a little bit better, maybe
Mhm.
help everybody else get through some of their problems a little bit better. And while I think that there are going to be plenty more stumbles, no restaurant ever runs perfectly,
No.
he can at least understand that he's a valuable piece to this puzzle. He's just as good at what he's good at as everybody else here is.
Yeah, the thing that Richie really needs is respect for himself.
Yeah.
And once that's why when there was that scene near the end where he woke up before the alarm and cleaned his own counter before he left, I was like, okay, the respect for himself is starting to come in where
Yeah.
he's like getting up before his alarm, making sure his place is clean. So when he comes home, he's going to come home to a nice, clean slate to be able to, start off his evening. Those are the things that you can do for yourself that he wasn't doing for himself, but now he is.
It's such a just a valuable takeaway. And I hope that everybody out there who watched this episode the first time or is rewatching it is like still finding as much enjoyment as, we are from checking this out. Like I think this is The Bear was already outstanding, but this is
Yeah.
the sort of episode that really does put it in like one of the best shows on TV. And it stinks that we kind of relegate everything to like, oh, this is a comedy, this is a drama. It's just like, can't the show be a good show and just be that? Like The Bear does not have to be just like best comedy. It can be in the best show on TV.
Listen, Hulu FX, if you drop all episodes of season 3 all at once, I'm going to be so mad.
No, it
Do
just
not do that again. This is like watching this season sort of
yeah.
episode by episode, not binging it. Like, I can't imagine having binge watched this season and just like, it's like you get a really good meal and you just eat it too fast. And all of a sudden you're just like, oh man, what happened to that meal? Like, that meal could have been savored
Yeah.
so good, but like, man, I just gorged it. I do not want these to all drop at once.
No, like this episode could have had a whole week where people are just
Yeah.
talking about it and how outstanding it is. But who knows? We still have more of this season to go. Maybe they will up the ante once
Yeah.
again. I don't know how that's possible, but hey, you guys can try it.
Yeah.
Well, be sure to hit that subscribe button for more coverage of The Bear Season 2 as we go through the rest of all this. And thank you to our
Thank you.
patrons for your support. We appreciate that. And we'll see you guys here next time.